Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning. You wake up, check your phone, and the headlines aren't just bad. They're final. The kind of news that makes your stomach drop. Overnight, the unthinkable has become reality. The financial system you've always known has just stopped. Banks are closed, markets are frozen. The digital numbers that represented your life's work have simply vanished from the screen. In the silence that follows the panic, a single, brutal question emerges. What now? What do you actually own right now that you can hold in your hands? Because in the history of economic collapses, when the music stops, the government doesn't just stand by, it starts taking chairs, and it has a very specific, documented list of what to take first. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on that list. We're going through the 5 assets that are seized first when an economy collapses. This isn't fear-mongering. This is a forensic study of history's greatest financial disasters, from Weimar Germany to modern-day Argentina, to reveal the uncomfortable blueprint that gets followed every single time. And more importantly, we'll talk about what that means for you and the silent protections you might not even know you need. Let's begin with the most obvious target, the one that seems safe until the very moment it isn't, your cash in the bank. Now, I can hear you thinking, they can't just take my money. But history whispers a chilling correction. Yes, they can and they will. We're not talking about a bank failure. That's different. That's chaos. This is orderly. This is policy. It's called a bail-in, and it became a formal part of the global financial playbook after 2008. Before that, governments used taxpayer money to bail out failing banks. After that, the rules changed. Now, the strategy is to use the bank's own assets, and that includes your deposits, to rescue it. Cyprus, 2013. A tiny island nation gives the world a giant warning. To secure an international bailout, the Cypriot government simply froze every bank account in the country. Then they took a portion, up to 60% for large, uninsured deposits, and converted it into bank shares. Poof! Your cash transformed into a piece of a failing institution, overnight, without your permission. The precedent was set. The European Union swiftly cemented this tool into law. The United States has similar frameworks within the FDIC's resolution plans. The logic is coldly mathematical. Your deposit is a liability on the bank's balance sheet. Now, let's shift from the digital to the physical, to something you can touch, see, and feel. This is where the narrative gets even more visceral. Asset number 3, precious metals, specifically gold. If you think this is a relic of the past, consider this. In 1933, under Executive Order 6102, President Franklin D. Roosevelt made it a crime for U.S. citizens to own monetary gold. They were forced to sell it to the Federal Reserve at a set price of $20.67 per ounce. Then, immediately after the collection was complete, the government revalued gold to $35 an ounce. It was a massive devaluation of the dollar, funded by confiscating the people's gold. The penalty for hoarding? A $10,000 fine or up to 10 years in prison. This wasn't ancient history. This was modern America. The rationale? To stop hoarding, to get money circulating during the Great Depression. But the effect was to centralize the nation's gold in government hands, removing the ultimate physical competitor to the paper dollar. Could it happen again? The legal architecture is still there. The precedent is engraved in law. In a true dollar crisis, where faith in currency evaporates, gold reemerges as a direct threat. It's an alternative currency that operates outside the system. For a government trying to reassert the dominance of its own paper, eliminating that competition isn't just likely, it's a historical imperative. They may not go door to door today. They'd start with reporting requirements, then mandatory sales to licensed dealers who report to the government, then outright bans on private holding. The path is already trodden. Your gold coin, your family's heirloom, isn't just a commodity. In a collapse, it becomes a political statement, and it's a statement governments have repeatedly silenced. But what about the assets that aren't in a vault or an account? What about the assets that define modern life? This leads us to the 4th and perhaps most surprising target, your digital assets, cryptocurrencies. Your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your crypto wallets. You might think, this is the escape hatch. It's decentralized. It's peer-to-peer. They can't take it. And you'd be half right. They can't take it, technically. Not in the way they can empty a bank account, but they can make it utterly worthless to you. How? By making it illegal to transact. By seizing the on-ramps and off-ramps, the exchanges. We've already seen this playbook in China, India, and Nigeria. They don't attack the code, they attack the people using it. In a full-scale economic reset, the government's need for control is absolute. An anonymous, borderless, censorship-resistant form of money is an existential threat. The first step is know your customer and anti-money laundering regulations on every exchange. The next step is banning the conversion of crypto to sovereign currency. Finally, they make holding it a crime. Your private keys might be secure, but if you can't sell your Bitcoin for food or medicine without facing prison, what is its value? The network persists, but your access to the real economy through it is severed. The government's goal in a collapse isn't just to acquire assets, it's to monopolize the very concept of value. Crypto challenges that monopoly at a fundamental level. Therefore, it will be suffocated, not through hacking, but through law. Your digital fortress becomes a digital prison if all the doors to the outside world are welded shut. Before we reveal the fifth and most critical asset, I want you to think about something. Look at this list so far. Cash, retirement funds, gold, crypto. What's the common thread? They are all stores of value that exist outside the direct daily control of the state in a crisis. They are alternatives. And in a collapse, the state cannot tolerate alternatives. It must funnel all energy, all value, all transactions back into the system it is trying to save, even as that system is failing. It's a paradox of control. Now, let me ask you a question right here. In your own financial plan, which of these assets do you rely on most? Is it the stability of your bank or the potential of your crypto? Hit pause for a second and just type one word in the comments below. Bank, crypto, gold, or retirement. I am genuinely curious to see where this audience's trust lies when the chips are down, because where you place your trust determines your vulnerability. Now, let's keep going. The story isn't over. In fact, we're arriving at the most personal and most devastating seizure of all. We've talked about financial accounts and alternative currencies, but there is one asset that dwarfs all others for the average American. It's the cornerstone of middle-class wealth, the result of decades of payments, the ultimate symbol of security and independence. Asset number 5, real estate, your home. And the mechanism for its seizure isn't a knocking on your door with the eviction notice. It's subtler, more bureaucratic, and far more cruel. It's achieved through property taxes. You see, you never truly own your home outright. You're always a tenant of the state. If you fail to pay your annual rent, your property tax, the government can and will take your home. It's called a tax lien foreclosure. In a stable economy, this is a manageable obligation. In a hyperinflationary collapse, it becomes a weapon. As currency implodes, the government's need for real revenue skyrockets. They will raise property tax rates dramatically to fund their collapsing operations. But your income, if you have one, may not keep pace with the inflation. Suddenly, the tax bill on your paid-off house is an impossible sum. You can't pay it. The government then auctions the tax lien. An investor pays the tax, and now you owe them with punishing interest. If you can't pay that, they foreclose. Your equity, your family's history, is stripped away for pennies on the dollar to satisfy a tax bill that was itself a product of the crisis. This is how generational wealth is legally, quietly transferred during a collapse. It happened on a massive scale during the Great Depression. It happens in every inflationary spiral. The government doesn't need to seize your house. It simply enforces the rule that you never truly owned it in the first place. They just raise the rent until you can't pay. So we have the list, the 5 assets: bank deposits, retirement accounts, precious metals, cryptocurrencies, and real estate. It's a grim tour of vulnerability. But understanding this is only half the battle. The critical question, the only question that matters, is what can you do? Is there a way to structure your life and your wealth, not just for growth in good times, but for preservation in the worst of times? The answer isn't simple, and it's not about stuffing cash in a mattress. It's about a philosophy of sovereignty. Let's start with the first layer, liquidity outside the system. This means physical cash in small denominations, stored securely. Not a fortune, but enough to operate for months if digital payments fail. It means holding some physical silver, not just gold. Why silver? Because in a true breakdown, gold is for preserving large wealth, but silver is for transaction. It's divisible. You can buy a tank of gas or a week of groceries with a silver coin. It flies under the radar. Next, diversification across jurisdictions. This is for those with significant assets. It means considering a foreign bank account in a stable country or legal structures that hold assets offshore. It's about not having all your eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is a single failing nation state. It's complex and it requires professional advice, but it's a historical imperative for wealth preservation. Then there's the knowledge layer. This is about holding assets that are difficult to identify and seize. Certain types of collectibles, art, rare watches, vintage cars, that hold value but aren't on a centralized registry. Skills are an asset that cannot be confiscated. The ability to fix things, to grow food, to provide medical aid. In a collapse, human capital becomes the ultimate currency. And this brings us to the most profound protection of all, community. No individual is an island. The greatest hedge against any crisis is a network of trusted relationships, of mutual aid. Barter systems predate money. In a world where official assets are being seized, your reputation, your skills, and your relationships with your neighbors become your most valuable ledger. This isn't romantic prepping. It's historical fact. Societies that fragment perish. Those that cooperate endure. But let's be brutally practical. For your investments right now, this analysis demands a specific shift in perspective. It's not about chasing the highest yield. It's about assessing counterparty risk on a grand scale. Every financial asset is a promise from someone else. A bank deposit is a promise from the bank. A stock is a promise from a corporation and the legal system that enforces its ownership. A bond is a promise from a government or company. In a systemic collapse, you are betting on which of these counterparties will keep their promises. History is very clear. The sovereign government will break its promises to its citizens before it breaks its promises to itself or to powerful international entities. Your promise ranks low. So your strategy must involve moving up the counterparty ladder, owning physical things with inherent utility, land with water and fertile soil, productive machinery, even knowledge, as we said, and critically, owning assets in a jurisdiction that you believe has a stronger rule of law or a greater commitment to property rights than your own. It's a grim calculus, but a necessary one. I want you to imagine a different kind of portfolio. Not a page on a brokerage statement, but a physical box. In this box, you have tools, physical tools for repair, and financial tools for survival. There's a stack of cash, there are some silver coins, there are paper copies of crucial skills manuals, from first aid to mechanics. There are contact lists for your trusted network. And there's a hard drive with encrypted copies of all your important documents, and perhaps a Bitcoin wallet whose seed phrase you have memorized. This box isn't about doom. It's about optionality. It's about having choices when others have none. When the digital grid of finance flickers and fails, this box is your manual override. Building it is the first, most tangible step from understanding vulnerability to achieving resilience. We've covered a vast and unsettling landscape today, from the digital confiscation of bank accounts to the physical loss of homes through tax foreclosure. This is the dark logic of economic collapse. It is not random chaos. It is a predictable process of consolidation and control. The state, in its fight for survival, consumes the wealth of its citizens. This is the unspoken contract of the modern financial system. In times of stability, it offers convenience and growth. In times of extreme crisis, it demands a sacrifice. Your savings, your future, your property become part of that sacrifice. Recognizing this is not pessimism. It is the beginning of true financial clarity. It allows you to see past the daily fluctuations of the market to the deeper, slower-moving tides of history and power. It forces you to ask the ultimate question, what do I truly own? Not what is my net worth on a screen, but what can I control, hold, and use, regardless of what a government decree says tomorrow. This brings us to a crossroads of thought. If the state can seize so much, what is left? Is true financial sovereignty even possible within a modern nation? The answer is not a binary yes or no, it's a spectrum. And your position on that spectrum is determined by your preparation. Let's delve deeper into the strategies, moving from the theoretical to the actionable. First, consider the concept of visibility. The modern state is a surveillance machine, especially for finance. It excels at seizing what it can see. Therefore, part of preservation is moving assets into categories with low visibility. This doesn't mean illegal activity. It means favoring assets that aren't on a centralized, easily accessed registry. For example, a beautifully crafted piece of furniture, a rare signed book, or a specific piece of non-flashy jewelry can hold significant value but is virtually invisible to tax authorities or asset seizure algorithms. Its value is contextual and requires expertise to appraise, making it a poor target for bulk confiscation. Compare that to a publicly traded stock or bank account balance which exists as a pure digital entry, easily identified, quantified, and frozen with a keystroke. Now, let's talk about debt in a collapse. This is a counterintuitive twist. In a hyperinflationary scenario where currency is evaporating, fixed-rate debt becomes an asset. Why? Because you're paying back loans with dollars that are becoming worthless. The real value of your mortgage melts away, while the real asset, the house, remains. Of course, this only works if you can keep making the payments, which hinges on your income keeping pace with inflation. And it crucially depends on the government not changing the rules, not declaring a debt jubilee that wipes out bank assets, but leaves you with a revalued obligation. It's a dangerous game, but historically those with manageable fixed debts have seen them inflated away. The losers are the savers with cash and the lenders. This is why governments love inflation. It's a silent tax that transfers wealth from creditors to debtors, with the state often being the biggest debtor of all. But we must address the elephant in the room, the human element. In a true collapse, the greatest threat isn't always the government, it's your desperate neighbor. The legal seizure of assets is one thing, the chaotic, violent confiscation by those who have nothing is another. This is where the physical location of your assets matters profoundly. That box of cash and silver we imagined? If an S in a home in a densely populated urban area where social order is breaking down, it becomes a liability, not an asset. This is the brutal calculus of crisis. Your strategy must include a plan for security and community. This is the deepest layer of protection, social capital. Being seen as a provider, a helper, a node of skills and stability is more valuable than any gold coin hidden in a floorboard. A coin can be stolen. The respect and mutual obligation of a community is a fortress that cannot be looted. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the historical pattern interrupt. Every great empire, every modern state that has faced collapse follows a similar script. First, it degrades its currency to pay for its promises. Then, it imposes capital controls to keep wealth from fleeing. Then, it seizes private pensions and nationalizes industries. Finally, it resorts to explicit confiscation of gold, of property, of foreign assets. We are not saying the United States is on the immediate brink of this, but we are saying the playbook exists. The legal tools are on the books. The precedents are global. To ignore this pattern is to believe it can't happen here, which are the four most dangerous words in economic history. Germany in the 1920s was one of the most educated, advanced societies on Earth. Argentina in the 1990s was a wealthy, European-style economy. It can happen anywhere when the fiscal and monetary errors reach a critical mass. So, for the educated, curious investor watching this, the task is to audit your life through this lens. Take a sheet of paper, make 3 columns. Column 1, assets. List them all: bank accounts, brokerage accounts, 401k, home, car, gold, crypto, everything. Column 2, counterparty risk. Who promises me this value? Is it Chase Bank, the US Treasury, a tech company, the rule of law itself? Column 3, seizure vulnerability. How easily could this asset be frozen, confiscated, or taxed into oblivion in a national emergency? Be brutally honest. This exercise isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to empower you with clarity. You will likely find that over 90% of your net worth is concentrated in highly vulnerable, high counterparty risk assets. That's normal. That's modern life. The goal isn't to flip that to 0%. That's impractical paranoia. The goal is to move the needle, to get 5%, then 10%, then 20% of your wealth into forms that are resilient, low visibility, and sovereign. That's how you build a robust financial immune system. Now, I have another question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Look at your own mental list. Which of the 5 assets we discussed do you feel is most at risk in the next decade? Is it the stability of the banking system, the sanctity of retirement accounts, or the freedom to hold assets like Bitcoin? Just type one word: banks, pensions, crypto, gold, or property. This discussion is crucial because our collective perception of risk shapes where the pressure will actually appear. Your insight helps everyone watching. Let's talk about the ultimate asset, the one that underpins all others: time. In a stable, growing economy, you trade your time for money, and you use that money to buy assets that you hope will appreciate faster than inflation. It's a game of financial multiplication. In a collapsing economy, the equation inverts. The primary goal shifts from multiplication to preservation. And preservation is not passive. It consumes time to learn skills, time to build community, time to physically secure and maintain your resilient assets. This is the great trade-off few make. They spend all their time optimizing their digital portfolio, but none of their time learning how to grow food or fix an engine. In a severe crisis, the latter skills are worth more than a portfolio statement. Therefore, part of your hedge is an investment of your hours today into knowledge and relationships that are collapse-proof. Take a course on basic mechanics. Volunteer in a community garden. These aren't just hobbies, they are strategic allocations of your time into the most durable asset class of all: practical human capability. We also need to address the psychological dimension. The fear of loss is paralyzing. Knowing all this can make you want to disengage, to hide. That's the wrong response. The right response is to engage more intelligently. It's to use the current functioning system to build the bridge to your own sovereignty. Use your high-income job in this stable economy to buy that productive land. Use your liquid investments to acquire those low-visibility, tangible assets. Use today's peace and connectivity to forge those strong local relationships. You're not preparing for a certainty. You're purchasing an option. And options have value only if you acquire them before they're needed. Think of it as insurance. You pay premiums for fire insurance on your house, not because you know it will burn down, but because if it does, the protection is priceless. The strategies we're discussing are premiums for a different kind of insurance: financial system insurance. The premium is your effort, your diversification, your learning curve. Consider the story of 2 investors in pre-collapse Argentina. Investor A is brilliant. He has all his wealth in government bonds and the local stock index, yielding fantastic returns. He lives in a beautiful apartment in Buenos Aires. Investor B seems eccentric. He has a smaller portfolio with a chunk in a foreign bank account, some physical dollars, a rural piece of land with a simple cabin, and a toolbox full of skills. When the collapse comes, investor A watches his bond payments stop and his stock value vaporize. His rent, denominated in a currency that is dying, skyrockets. He is trapped in a city descending into chaos. His wealth digits on a frozen screen. Investor B has options. He can leave the city. He has a store of value that is still accepted internationally, dollars. He has a productive retreat. He has skills to trade. Investor B isn't rich, but he is free. He has sovereignty. Which investor would you rather be? The one who won the game of the old system, or the one who built a life operable outside of it? This brings us to our final and most crucial point. The purpose of all this isn't to foster a survivalist bunker mentality. It's to achieve freedom of mind. When you know you have a plan, when you know that not all your security is vested in a system that has demonstrated historical fragility, you operate from a place of strength, not fear. You can make calmer investment decisions. You can engage in your career not out of desperation, but out of purpose. You reduce the leverage that any external crisis has over your well-being. That is the ultimate wealth. Not a number, but the unshakable confidence that you and your family can weather storms that would break others. It's the tranquility that comes from true resilience. So, what is the actionable takeaway from this deep dive? Start with one step, just one. Maybe this week, you take 5% of your cash holdings and convert it to physical bills, stored safely. Maybe you call a financial advisor to ask about the rules governing your 401k in a national emergency. Maybe you buy a few ounces of silver, not as an investment, but as a physical token of understanding this lesson. Maybe you simply introduce yourself to your neighbors. The step doesn't matter as much as the direction. You are moving from total dependence to incremental sovereignty. You are writing your own financial story rather than just being a character in the state's story. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The patterns of confiscation are a haunting refrain in the Song of Fallen Economies. To hear that refrain is not to despair. It is to gain the precious gift of foresight. You now have the score. You can see the notes coming. And that allows you to prepare your own harmony, to build a life where your wealth is not just a figure subject to the whims of others, but a manifestation of your own autonomy and preparedness. The economy is a story we all participate in. In times of growth, the story is about accumulation. In times of collapse, the story is about preservation. But the smartest players understand both stories are always true at once. They build for growth while fortifying for preservation. They enjoy the sunshine while quietly reinforcing the roof. That is the balanced, powerful, and truly secure position. That is the position you can build starting today. If this exploration of the unseen vulnerabilities and profound strategies has changed your perspective, if it's made you think differently about what you truly own, then do me a favor. Share this video with one person who needs to see it. A family member, a close friend, someone you care about whose financial future matters to you. Because this knowledge isn't just for you. Resilience is collaborative. And if you are not already part of this community digging deep into the real forces that shape our financial lives, then hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We go beyond the headlines here, beyond the surface level stock tips, to the foundational principles of wealth, power, and economic survival. This is just the beginning of the conversation. I'll see you in the next one.